one.
Are you gonna give me orders?
Anyways, the super serious series coming up is DRG versus Zest. I guarantee these guys know how to control group. And, well, we might actually talk about Queen Range in this series. It won't be the focus. ZVP, DRG, kind of surprising us in the start of TSL by taking out Solar. Did eventually find himself in the lower bracket, though, when Zest surprising us by losing to Euthermal. More the way he lost to Euthermal.
Yes.
But beating Sign yesterday, and of course finding themselves off facing each other here. We're going to start on Everdream as we head into the start of this brand new best of 5.
Yep, fresh best of 5, PVZ, a bit of a different matchup to what we've been seeing. Very excited for this one. Really feel like, for me, this is one of the. I'm a big Terran fan, obviously, and I'm always excited for the Terran matchups, but I'm really more excited about this PVZ than I would be about a lot of PVZs, just because they have met a lot recently. There's been a mix of results. I think that's been really cool to follow, and it really feels like both these players have a good chance to win this match, even if Zest would come in as the favorite. Let's get some intros going in the bottom left. We do have the Afrika Freaks and DongRaeGu.
Brought his fan club. In the top right for Team Ra, he is the Blue Protoss Zest.
Team Ra.
Raise your edge. Someone once told me that I had the worst Southern accent for someone from Virginia, and I was like, "You don't know Virginia if you think we all have Southern accents."
You have a Southern accent?
Oh, that's a thing I don't. And I can't replicate one because no one around me has ever talked with an accent.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't possibly believe it.
No, I mean I could try. I could try and be like a Southern belle, but that would actually kind of be excruciating, to be honest. So let's not do that one.
Are you kidding me? You try and tell me you don't think that would improve the cast quality?
I've had like an idea of doing like something really silly as far as like a YouTube series goes, where I intentionally try and cast in like different ways, right?
Yeah.
It's like Southern or try and do like a Brooklyn accent. Hey, I'm probing over here, just so people can purely laugh at how bad I am at it. But you know what? My ego can't take that. So
yeah, I'm all right showing people my origins accent on my stream, but that's about as far as I'm gonna go.
Right? Yeah. All right, so we did have a pro block in the natural. So we see DRG has taken his third. Zest, of course, maybe bringing himself back into the forefront for CVP, PVZ on his side. In Katowice, you know, it was one of his more questionable matchups, and then he went into a group with mostly Zergs. And did very well. Obviously, he beat Cyril as well. Got a little bopped by Rogue, if we're being honest, if we're telling the whole story here. But his PVZ is no longer really in question. Like, he does have good PVZ, and he can use that old Adept build we've been seeing a lot really, really well. Which, you know, saying that doesn't surprise me to see a Twilight Council.
Yep, Twilight Council on the way. Zest has done a really good job of mixing it up, even on the Twilight Council lately, though. He's been mixing in kind of like, he's gone from like not just glaives to being like glaives and then sometimes DTs. And he actually has a DT opener build, which makes it look like a glaives opener, which can be very hard to read. At this point, I feel like DRG's played it so many times that it's still hard to read to know which one, but then you just make kind of precautionary spore crawlers anyway. So it feels like that shouldn't, you know, I don't see that kind of straight up winning any games here, as he will go for the Dark Shrine opening from the start. So let's see how exactly he uses it. When you say he makes it look like an Adept attack, I mean he basically moves across the map with 4 Adepts with the Warp Prism at the time the Adepts would move. That's actually when he's heading across to try and make the DTs, basically. So
It can be very tricky. I mean, one of the ways you can tell as observers whether it's going to be DTs or Adepts is if they take guys out of gas. But that's something that a Zerg player is not really supposed to be able to see. Now the Overlord's going to see everything. Oh, well, you could have. My dude, I believed in you. You just had to move to the right as well, by the way, like a little bit. Oh, okay.
You just had to actually scout. He's just like, oh, the Nexus is in the main base. Perfect. He didn't accidentally kill it, I guess.
That was actually a very odd scout. Like, that's when you stop. That's when you pull. I guess he didn't want the Overlord to die, but yeah. Less so talking about what Zest is doing and more about what DRG is doing. The initial lings might have been to catch these Adepts. And in fact, they do a great job of that. But he's also adding on those roaches, which are going to be very important dealing with the actual Archon drop. And we might even have the Lings try and stop any quick third Nexus that could have come down.
Wow.
Fantastic job with the Adepts. And roaches are being made with the Spore Crawlers as the Warp Prism starts to warp in.
Perfectly done by DRG. I think this is the issue that Zest is kind of... This build was kind of really fun when he first used it, and it really caught a lot of people off. But now it's kind of figured out, and he even loses the Adepts. This isn't so great, though. Actually, the DTs get 6 drones, so that's actually a bit of a mistake from DRG to not have a proper answer to that. He will clean out everything across the map, but there's still a DT there, so at the end of the day, he's not really going to break through a wall off or anything. And he's on a very low drone count. He was on 33 drones before he lost 6, which is way less than usual. But DRG, his workers, definitely not where they want to be, and definitely going to hurt because of that.
I mean, what he did to take out the Adepts was great, but, I mean, losing anything at all when you've committed a lot of units to defending this, what could have been perfectly, I mean, that's not the ideal for sure. I mean, right now, ideally for DRG, he does have all the units necessary to both defend this, and he can just drone, as well as delay Zest's third, so he will eventually match and then, you know, exceed Zest's economy. But it was a long time to be awfully low on drones for our Zerg here.
Archon's coming in, gonna get the Queen kill on the third base. The Roaches there as well. The Lings, ooh, one of them slipped by, but only the one. So the DT is still doing well defensively. It definitely feels like DRG is just on too low a drone count to make this work out. And yes, he's gonna catch up now, but that's been a huge amount of time where Zest has been in the lead. And that definitely makes DRG much weaker when it comes to trying to deal with the future armies here, basically.
Well, the Lings would love another swipe at that third Nexus, but the DTs are something they really can't handle. I mean, you could try bringing an Overseer over there, but usually seen as a worthwhile. So he continues to pump up the drones. He also adds on a Spire. Now, whether the Spire will actually help before Zest moves out with +1 and charge, that's a bit of a question mark. And the Archons, I mean, the Archons probably shouldn't see the Spire, which is the good news. And because the Archons think they're doing a decent job at scouting, we might not see Hallucinations scout the Spire either. Well, this is a nice pickoff. I think 3 probes right there. But, yeah, like is Zest going to move out before or after those mutas are actually made and doing damage to his probe line?
It's the big question, right? And, you know, having the mutas coming in, it just obviously, if you can hit before the mutas, that would be amazing. That's the dream. But he just doesn't really have the information to make that decision either. So it really depends if he just kind of blindly wants to go for the +1, if he kind of believes he's done well enough early anyway to just get away with that. In which case he might just go for it. But that's it's a tough call to make. So I would not be surprised if he did just sit back and when the mutas show up, make his life difficult. But he is going to start making a bit of a move out. I think it's always good to move out if you feel safe enough to even just see what's up, right? Because then you can kind of make the decision on the fly. Like, oh, you have this or you have that. Check and keep going here versus, you know, just sitting back and maybe missing an opportunity that you don't get to see at all.
And for DRG, seeing that the army was in fact moving out, he can't really go for the mutas. At this point, the mutas could maybe snipe the Warp Prism, but that is also a big maybe. They would not help out against the Archons or any further Stalkers that could be warped in. So he tries to invest everything he was maybe going to use on the Spire into building a lot of Ravagers, first off, and then supplementing his Roaches. Now, that supply doesn't actually look that convincing when we're talking about the army types. Oh, no, Immortal, okay. As Immortal Archon is supposed to absolutely take on the army here of DRG, especially with an upgrade advantage and only a 20 army supply disadvantage for the Protoss. Like, that is actually totally workable. But Zest decides not to go for it. He pulls back. It's the more Archon drops here. He just goes back into the harassment. Now, this is the opportunity, that DRG was maybe hoping for, which is to actually make the mutas and gain some control over this game. But Zest is also already going into Blink.
Yeah, the Blink is a follow-up, right? When you see that much Roach Ravager, it's a good follow-up anyway. And also, when you see that much Roach Ravager, one of the real common ways to play is to obviously then switch into mutas, right? So Zest gets that Blink going, and he'll be very well prepared here, it would seem. So looking good for Zest still. I still just like his position overall. Really believe like the early game went well enough for him. And yeah, now we're really seeing the repercussions of that for DRG, who... yes, he's going to get maxed out, but his upgrades are non-existent, really. His Baneling Nest is very late to really make this anything more than just Roach Ravager, as that's a nice play on this War Prism. If he saves the Archons as well, oh my goodness. So many Mutilas killed.
And the Stalkers easily respond to this. Would be easier with Blink too, but Zealots, oh boy, all the Zealots he was building with his mineral count went around the map, totally unseen by anything DRG had, and it's going to get on top of this fourth base. Quick pull on the drones at the very least to save them, but without a fourth base, 74 drones aren't really mining that efficiently, and even a recall, which is definitely the right call. I mean, maybe he could have gotten away with keeping them in the top left, but recall is going to save 1,000 minerals worth of units. And I think his army is still good enough on the ground to push forward, especially as it finishes blinking +2. I mean, if the previous timing wasn't enough, this one definitely feels like enough.
Yeah, for sure. This is, well, going to be seeing Roach Ravager coming across, but look how many Archons there are. The Immortal counted, and feels like Zest gets a bit of an interesting fight here at the start, but these Archons and Mauls really should just do everything they need to, and the Stalker's backing up from behind, and DRG's army's never meant to win this fight. It really is not, and it really doesn't. It just gets absolutely shut down, absolutely destroyed, and this was Zest just getting far enough ahead early. It really felt like when DRG caught those first few Adepts, had Spores up, really felt like this was meant to be a really good hold for him, and it just fell apart, right? I mean, just took so much damage from the DTs, just no units in that main base, a lower drone count than you usually expect to begin with, so on top of the drones lost, that lower drone count, and he never recovered from that with Zest attacking at the right times to make sure the Mutas really had no option either.
Yeah, did not end up really working out well in the early game for DRG, but he fixed that up. Maybe next game is going to look a little bit better. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Remember to hit that follow button. We will be casting, streaming TSL 8+ hours a day for the next few weekends, Saturday and Sunday, starting in 8 a.m. EDT, 2 p.m. CEST. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yes, nailed it. And we'll be casting every Saturday and Sunday until the 7th of June, which will also be the finals, which promise to be a good one. We got upper bracket, we got lower bracket, currently finding ourselves in the lower bracket. But as we've been saying this entire day, the lower bracket is actually in many ways better than the upper bracket. Just cast Cure for Innovation down there. Saw Cure have to say goodbye. Yeah. And right now we're watching another two players who, one of them's going to have to actually drop out here. And I would say it's actually, I mean, you said Zest is probably the favorite, and I agree with that, but I think it's very possible that DRG knocks out another fan favorite in Zest.
Yeah, I really think that the series can go either way. I really do believe in DRG. I had him down to beat Solar in the first round, the winner bracket, and I really did think he'd make a good run here. And for me, him against Zest, I think it's totally doable. I think for a lot of people, Zest is the favorite. I think for me, Zest is the favorite as well. But I wouldn't be like, oh my god, what the heck, DRG, how did you do this? If DRG ends up winning, I think actually for me, that's like, okay, well, that's the way this matchup went today, you know? So, fun series. Already one game up for Zest, of course, but lots of room for DRG to get back in it as we go into game number 2. ZG, take us away.
Staying on a probe very quick in the bottom right, he is the blue Protoss, Zest.
And the top left, maybe in danger of being hatch blocked, it's DRG.
That's exactly what Zest is going for. Sending out that probe immediately does really impact your income. It is perhaps worth it for the ideas he has in this game. Didn't really end up doing very much in the last game, but that was also because DRG was willing to make so many units to defend perfectly. Yeah. All right, then. But as we went over, even though he was supposed to defend perfectly, he was, very much so getting units at the right time. It doesn't always work out as well as you would hope. So let's say that that doesn't happen this game, that Zest actually is able to take advantage at least a little bit about this hatch block. That can happen. DRG looks more than willing to accept that this is going to be a reality. He just sends that drone over to the third.
Yeah, hatch blocking is such a normal thing now in ZVP. It's funny because he ends up kind of taking more or less a 16 hatch on the third base as well, which is kind of the one you want to take on the natural. But with that probe so early, Zest commits to it, and he gets what he wants, so DRG just going to have to play this out from there. But this really is maybe the time then for Zest to try and get those glaives out and those adepts, because you do know that's when... this is one of the times you really want to try and use those adepts, when you can really take advantage of the fact that DRG is going to be in a bad spot. The early economy is going to be disrupted a little bit more. That obviously definitely gives you opportunities and potential from that.
For some Protoss players, it is really nice to set the Zerg off a little bit more so than it does their own build. For DRG, he's learned to accept it. Kind of feels like it's in waves that we have the real insistence on the hatch block. I mean, if you go for a regular pylon probe block, so interesting way to say that, but yeah, the pylon gets made, then the probes gets over, and if you get a block there, I mean, that's nice, but it's not really insisting on it. What Zest does, immediately setting out, that's actually what he wants.
Yes.
And it seems to come and go as far as like when Protoss players are like, this is the ultimate thing, this is the best thing I can do. But Zest is in that mood right now. By going for Archons first, he could very well go for Adept second and just actually beat-bop between those two builds because they do look similar to each other, and eventually just hope that he catches DRG off guard. Now for DRG, the one thing he can pretty much for sure scout is that warp gate timing, which can tell him if it's going to be a Stargate or not, depending on how fast it is.
Just to quickly mention the kind of what you said about the about this kind of being like in style of blocking. It's kind of like when the Zergs kind of went through their own phase, right? Of being like, oh my god, you know what? We kind of love blocking your next with the hatchery. And it's like, okay. And that was just suddenly like totally a thing for a while. And it was like, well, I guess we just deal with this now as Protoss players. I guess you guys just have no choice. Like, this is your life. So yeah, it's funny how those things kind of come and go in the meta, and as people figure out how to play around them and so on. There's DRG, 19 drones, no more gas mining, Lings streaming across the map.
Hello.
Here we go, the aggression begins.
Don't have a lot of units in the early game. You don't have an Oracle about to pop out when you don't go for that Stargate. You don't have, an Immortal able to be produced with your Robo being a little bit later. Like, no, you're thinking about that Twilight Council. I'm thinking about the later stages of the game, and DRG is hoping that means he won't be able to defend a mass flood of Lings. Now, Zest did see that there was no gas follow-up to this, but I might have actually even inclined to believe it was a macro game. He is setting up that wall. That was a nice response. It was a quick response. And he knows that the more Lings he sees, the more dedicated it is, the more he can afford to lose some of these structures, but he needs to get his production up and running.
Yeah, he's going to have that warp gate finishing, so that's big, because oftentimes you see the warp gate denied or cancelled in these fights, and that's absolutely terrifying. Once that happens, you're in such a difficult position to play out from as the Protoss player. In this position, Zest doesn't really have much else on the way, but now he's got a sentry out, so he can force field to save some gateways in time to block the Lings from running through at points. And it really feels like this should be under control. He doesn't have a lot of army now, but once these gateways get up and he gets a few more warp-ins, this is only going to help. And of course, again, he should really be able to buy a lot of time here with the sentries. He could just do with the extra warp-in. Another sentry or so would really go a long way just to make sure, but he might be losing the Cybercore before he gets that warp-in.
Well, he's a second one. Like, he built that so long ago,
wow,
and it
yes,
finished
he did.
it.
I didn't even realize it was part of the wall off, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
he finished
so
it
he
at a
does have
perfect
a second
time. This actually looks like such a disaster, but DRG is really committed to this. If he breaks through once, he will be able to start typing off, 3, 4, 5 probes, and that'll make it a little bit more worth it. But he has so far not been able to break through. The amount of walls that Zest perfectly put down is basically like watching like Grand Finals Tetris. All right, like that was actually pretty sick. No mistakes. No, oh, that looks like a wall, but it wasn't. He didn't even have to use his shield battery energy on healing structures, which is what we usually see. He was actually very reserved, letting his pylons die, knowing he had the backup wall. That was some sick structure handling, and that is also not that much of a surprise, because I can guarantee Zest knows exactly what his weaknesses are, and he knows that he has to prepare to do this Tetris structure game. He did a wonderful job with that.
Yeah, did a great job. I'm actually impressed by DRG able to get the worker count so high already. That feels like he's been able to blast that up very quickly. Up to 41 drones now, and it almost feels like, usually when you come out of this fight as the Zerg and they didn't kill the Protoss or do serious pro damage, it feels like the game's over. It kind of feels like DRG's in a very playable position from this.
He was so far down in drones for so long. I saw those Lings continuing to make, and I was like, buddy, I don't think you're actually going to be able to bust through this. But at the end of the day, we do have to consider how many minerals Zest spent in holding the wall. If he had been able to get units, we're talking about him having, an investment into things that can also counter. But since he invested into structures, we're talking about, okay, great, so congrats on holding, but you spent money on that, not building probes, not building army. DRG can, in fact, get away with his own good, superior economy. And maybe now has to worry a little bit about that army supply. Now he is fine to do so. Now he is fine to build roaches and lynx. Actually, he might just be on the offensive again. He's going to attack again. Okay.
Yep. Just
there he goes.
No lair, right? So just hatchery tech. Eventually, this is going to be an attack, and I say eventually, the unit's already moving across the map. Now, Zest is going to have Archons. He's going to have charge. What's weird is it means that with charge, you don't really want to defend behind your wall off, though. So you kind of want to fight this in the open. But it kind of goes against everything you kind of want to do usually when you're stuck on 2 bases against the Zerg player. So it's a little weird in that regard. Let's see what Zest can do with this. He does have his units out the front. He does know about that. He's got Archons across the map. And DRG is pulling back. He's droning. DRG, if he pulls back from this, though, is so far behind on the lair. He's got this Archon harassment to deal with. I really don't like it. I would have liked to see DRG just try and make it happen with these Archons out of position.
Wow, yeah, I am also very surprised. Now, his drones were going to be lost. I mean, you could pull them away maybe, but I guess he was okay, that was actually going to be a good prediction, but War Prism stopped. I guess he thought that losing the drones was not going to be worth the bust, but I was with you, man. I thought that was about to bust into sentries that could not have enough force fields to stop it. The War Prism not being able to juggle back at home can be a real big disaster in terms of Protoss defense. But instead, it's the Archons being more threatening. Was it the situation that the Spider scared you away from your own home? Or was he actually correct in pulling back and defending his base? I don't know yet. But he is back up in those workers. It was just the lair that was really quite at the cost of that attack, you know?
It feels like he's recovered on the drone count and the tech very well again, though, right? And that's what I was very concerned about, the fact that he'd be, you know, again, you were late on the lair because of all of this and so on, but, you know, now you recover from that, and if he can pull that off, then fair enough, I'm with him all the way. But that was my concern, I guess. This is on a later +1 attack upgrade. Maybe it was the right call, which is impressive, but it feels like a really tough one to make in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say most other Zergs, at the very least, just do the attack because they are already there. You're like, you know, this is how it's going to go. Let's accept fate. The DRG running all the way back home with slow units, slow roaches at the very least. That was a decision and might have been the right one. Still having the economy okay. He's just taking his third base, though. He will have the high ground defender's advantage that happens on this map. So 3 bases is probably comfortable for him right now. When you talk about reaching towards the 4th, though, that's when things get scary. And I don't believe that Zest, he has no +1 or +2 timing really in mind in this game. It's been thrown off way too much. So defending with Storm here, letting DRG take the map and size up the engagements.
Storm's a nice call, though. Storm will definitely help in these fights. DRG is just on Road Ravager still, though. You know, he's really not moved away from that. And this is where it definitely gets scary, because yes, you have a lot of power in this right away. When you're very swarmy, you've got a lot of units. This is like the 3rd time I'm going to call that DRG is all in this game, I think, because he's stuck on 63 workers, and that's going to be what he goes for. And this time, it looks like he's really going to go for the attack. Storm so far, though, from Zest have been great. The shield batteries and cannons are holding on brilliantly as well. The only thing I'd say is that there's an Archon that needs saving, but he does get to the save. And, well, it feels as though DRG is getting closer in army supplies. A couple Storms left. Zest needs to drop those as soon as possible and just morph in the Archons, I feel, rather than continue to run these High Templar around, because he's lost out on everything else on the ground. Did this just work? Because I really felt like it was not working. I mean, yes, it has worked,
I
but...
think... You know, I get to sit back and watch it all unfold. You try and keep up with the action, but I think what happened was that the Ravagers were left alive, right? That was actually really nice for DRG, and there weren't Zealot warping, so they would finally take care of that, and that there were more than a couple Corrosive Biles landing on a decent amount of units. Those 2 things change up. Maybe we're talking about a hold. Also, the Storms, while effective, were not like on a bunch of clumped up units. It was still kind of a nice spread. And then, that Remax, DRG was coming across the map with far superior numbers. DRG making all the right calls in that game. Even, you know, the all-in, continue doing it. So he has to build more gateways. The follow-up attack, don't commit to it, pull it back. And then the final all-in, yes, absolutely commit to it. Very good read on that game from DRG. Zest was just trying to keep up with it, man.
That's pretty sick. I'm impressed. Like you said, right, the Storms, I think it's a good call. Storm isn't like super duper amazing against Road Ravager, but if it hits the Ravagers, it's good. And the first couple Storms felt great, but then what happened afterwards that you didn't actually get to see the storms really follow up, right? There's no kills after the storms dropped. You just pulled the units back. I guess the Archons disappeared faster than I thought they would as well. I just expected that splash damage to be there, and if that splash damage is there, you really do lose a lot on the front lines. Yeah, very interesting fight. One of those ones you can absolutely rewind and watch a couple of times, I think, and pick up on even more things that happened. So, well, DRG puts up a fight here. 1-1 ties it up against Zest. And after 2 games, really feels like it's going to be difficult to predict what the heck's going to happen in this series, because DRG is keeping it changing on every possible moment. Every minute he changes his game plan. And if he plays like that for the rest of the series, it's going to be a hard one to call. Not just for us, but for Zest as well.
Yeah, he was in a position where he wasn't only responding to anything that his opponent could be doing, but also having to size up how much it cost him to defend against those things. That was definitely one of those games you're like, it's not just about defending against all-ins, right? If you build 12 bunkers to defend 7 roaches, you are not ahead because you didn't take any damage. That was like one of those examples of a pro game where it's like, well, maybe building all those structures actually wasn't that great. The hold in the end wasn't that great. A very interesting one. Once again, fast probe being sent out. In the bottom right, that is the red Zerg. He is DRG, but that probe. Okay, no, you did the intros. Go ahead.
Okay, in the top left-hand side, our blue Protoss player is Zest. Yes, that probe. DRG goes for like the 15 hatch.
Yeah, that probe was, I was like, I'm pretty sure it was a fast probe. How was the hatchery already down? Well, that's why, because he went for a very early hatch. His probe went to the right, I guess, to dodge the Overlord. That was a bit of a weird pathing.
Yeah, but why do you want to dodge the Overlord, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all about getting that as soon as possible.
Huh. I guess so that DRG would try to take the natural instead of doing what he's been doing, which is just going like, okay.
Yeah, maybe it still works if DRG is going for like a 16 hatch. But obviously because it's a 14 hatch, it's just not going to work anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, that wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be, but I still think it's interesting just that, DRG does also commit a bit of his economy, what could have been a better economy, into making sure he gets that natural. I guess he got fed up here. It's like, no, I'm definitely getting that down. We've had a couple of cheesier Zerg players actually do builds around this idea. The 15, 14 or something very odd like that eventually ends in a Ling all-in, hoping that the hatchery timing was deceiving enough to a pylon or gateway scout of the probe. But I think this really was just DRG saying, I'm sick of having to take the other third, perhaps Nightshade especially being too scary for how long it is between your main and your third base.
Yeah. It's one of those maps where, it's actually quite a nice 3-base to defend. The distance between the main mineral line and the third mineral line especially is really long, because you kind of come over to you go to the right after you leave the main to get down the ramp, then you have to go to the left again. So it really is that increased distance you're talking about.
Yeah.
Zest Twilight Council 3rd game in a row. Are you shocked? No, we're not. But will he actually get to go to Glaives this time, I guess, is the big question.
Yeah, his build was so messed up last game. I mean, I did eventually go into the Archon drop, clearly, but we haven't seen him try the Resonant Glaives thing yet. We are going to see that this game. He's already pulled a guy off of gas. So, probe. At least one of them. I think the other one's also off. And there's Resonant Glaives all started up. So this is DRG's, he's got to figure this out, right? Oh, actually keeps one of them in gas. So usually it is one off of each, but it still is Resonant Glaives attack. So the DRG has to figure this out, that it's not an Archon drop, that it is a Resonant Glaives attack. I guess another question is it going to be a little more dedicated than usual, or is it just going to be those 4 gateways? Seems to be just 4.
Yeah, just 4 gateways. One of the cool things you've seen from Resonant Glaive attacks lately is that we used to have Glaives, and then you go Dark Shrine now or so. So you have the first wave of Adepts, and then there's already DT showing up. More recently, there's been some plays where there's actually been a Dark Shrine coming in as a follow-up to the Adepts much later. And I think it's really cool because it actually means if you get a good amount of damage done with the Adepts, one of the options that really is there usually for the Zerg is to follow up with an all-in, right? But if they do that off of no lair, you have DTs and the all-in just gets defended right away. So it kind of allows you to be a bit more divey with the Adepts. So if you see that opportunity where it's like, oh, I can dive for Workers, but I might lose the Adepts, there has been that DT Shrine to then give you the follow-up. So let's see what the choice is. Obviously, it really depends on how Zest wants to play it as well. As he gets his next set of Adepts, and DRG is actually on a pretty fast set of Roaches. For someone who likes to defend this with Lings initially, his Roach is already well on the way. Only 37 drones here, compared to what sometimes can even be like a 42 or 43 drone defense when DRG defends this.
Well, he might just be able to get away with it. The Roaches are popping, the Queens are already on the Warp Prisms. It's a bit of a dangerous warp in, but it seems okay. Zest never has to really commit to this. He's already ahead in the Workers, and he could easily use his Warp Prism plus the Shades to really do maximum damage, but he actually is going to commit to it. He's going to commit to the ramp as well. The Lings are not really on top of it, so he does get a pretty nice surface area for his own Adepts. The Lings, however, looks like they're going to be enough with the combination of the Roaches. The Adepts, maybe just not getting far enough up that ramp to really be worth that. They also didn't really get a second Shade. These two were the only ones that lived. So that was not as good as it looked. That was one of those last-second decisions that I think turned around on Zest. Now he's down a lot in the army, and DRG still has some that he could send across the map to stop any attempt at a third Nexus again. I think Zest knows that, though, and it's like, yeah, I'm not going to get a third Nexus. Let's add on gases, let's continue the harassment, and let's add on a Dark Shrine.
Yeah, the Dark Shrine going to come up. There's still no lair here from DRG, so it really limits DRG to just playing defensively. Which defensively, well, actually behind on Workers. So even though those first few Adepts didn't do a lot, what is DRG now meant to do to take advantage of his army lead? Well, he is going to add a lair on now, so we'll see if he can maybe turn that into something as he'll catch a few more Adepts here. It does feel a little bit scary with those Adepts going down.
Yeah.
And there's just not much on the map for Zest.
I would say really scary. I mean, yeah, you always have the War Prism to threaten the Zerg, but if you're still only talking about 4 Adepts, that's something that you could be willing to just pull your drones away from to stop the third Nexus from coming up. The trade on the Adepts did end up losing some of those Lings' lives as well, so it's not enough to tackle this. Even if they got a full surround, it's not going to go down. Zest was building Adepts back at home, but they are back at home, so like this is still an army that is supposed to be more and more inferior as time goes on. Immediately going into the Archon drop with the DTs. I mean, he saw the Spore Crawlers, he knows the lair will be on the way, it's actually finishing. So Archon drop follow-up is a nice way to control the game and still get some scouting done.
Yeah, I like it. Just realize the spores, etc., and realize the lair was on the way too, right? So DTs themselves won't do a lot. Still think it's nice to get the DT Shrine just because the DTs themselves can go a long way in certain scenarios. Then, of course, you've always got that follow-up of going for the Archon drop if you don't get usage out of the DTs. And that's exactly what we get here.
That is a lot of Adepts right there. It's almost 20 Adepts. I'm not sure DRG is going to be expecting this. Yeah, it feels like an all-in for sure. Stop building probes. Might have a third Nexus, but not building probes. DRG needs to get back on the Roach train fast. He will have Roach speed eventually, and that does help against these Adepts, but there's so many of them, and they can split as well. I don't think he'll be able to respond to every single location.
Yeah, Lings are the only defense on the left-hand side is now the Adepts and Archons. Go into the natural. There's a lot of Queens there, and they get onto the Warp Prism pretty quickly. They won't be able to make their way past the Archons to really get on top of that again. Now the Roaches are dealing with the Adepts, but the Adepts will shade on the Queens. So yeah, Zest is a bit all over the place. With the Queens being taken down, the Prism can warp in very safely. The Roaches do come to intercept that, but these Roaches are fighting those Adepts. What's protecting the mineral line? Absolutely nothing. And the drones starting to go down. 15 Workers already killed here by Zest. He's up in the main. And once these Adepts start shading around your bases, it feels like they just never stop because it's so hard to catch them. Yeah, you get a few kills here, but guess what? There's Adepts on the third. There's some that just shaded back to the natural. And this is an absolute nightmare for DRG, whose supply plummets, even loses the third hatchery the DTs warped in for added DPS.
And DTs are pretty brutal. They do have a lot of DPS. Glass Cannon, sure, but nothing was there protecting them. War Prism won't be able to save the Adepts, but a recall will. He's actually over the Spore Crawler. Now the lair's done, and he was building an Overseer. So that's a matter of time for the DTs to be picked up again. But no Queens. He knows he killed those ones as well. If DRG had kept his third alive, I'd say there's still maybe some hope in a counter doing damage and continuing the game with a bit of, army versus economy situation. But with the third dead, I guess he does have a fourth, actually, but still, with his ability to make units, whether it's drones or Roaches, cuts, He is absolutely all in. This has to do not just some damage, delay mining. No, he has to actually do game-ending damage with a 20 armor supply lead and a +1 upgrade lead. He might be able to do something here, but that Warp Prism coming back is going to be juggling those Immortals. So you need to jump on top of those, which is exactly what he does. Already popped the shields, so that one goes down pretty easily. The second one also had his shields popped, but there's the Warp Prism going for the juggle. The Overseer is available. Nothing to shoot that down. Archons aren't going to be helpful for another few seconds. He's going to try and target them, but the charge is done. Another Immortal pops up here. DRG. I like that he got that first Immortal. That was really clutch, but there seems to be too many units.
There is just too many units, and DRG doesn't have the economy to keep reinforcing this for too long at all, so this really does lose its first little bit of momentum, and then it's just stopped dead, and Zest is going to clean up to take a game number 3 and go up onto match point here against DRG. He made a good effort of it. I really think a lot of the initial defense and so on was good, but it was the part after that, which was obviously not so great, and I don't think he was expecting that many extra adepts again. I don't think he was expecting that much more at all, as you're going to be jumping into Zen for map number 4. Cat time.
I heard the stream likes the cats, so I made sure to bring a cat.
You get a pay raise for every cat you bring on.
I wish, yeah. Yeah, but the follow-up all-in that just was not expected. You know, I saw him making so many adepts, and I'm like, well, he's got to do something with them, but can he? No, actually just planning on doing nothing but adepts, going for the big attack. That is something that DRG was not prepared for. Had he had twice as many roaches, he would have been able to handle that a lot better just simply by halving his army in one place to another. And his queens also not maybe misclicked and took out the Warp Prism after the second warp in. That also might have been a big difference. But nope, Archons are doing a good job protecting that. So the follow-up, the old, attack into a follow-up that they don't expect. That's the true Protoss way, right? And certainly some revenge from last game where DRG did the old all-in to follow-up attack. That, well, he didn't actually execute, but still, he was planning on it. Some revenge indeed. 2-1 for Zest. As he asks for a break. Yeah. It's okay, we'll just watch my cat.
Just cat cam.
Yep.
Perfect. I'll just sit back and let the cats do it.
Mm-hmm. I wore white today, anticipating this. Well, not my pants, actually. That's right, you shed a ton. We have 2 minutes to talk about the cat. He's Apollo, and he's named after the Battlestar Galactica character. And he is a Japanese bobtail, which means that he has a very small tail indeed. It's a bob. Oh, he's not bobbing it, though. He's like, not today. There's the information.
Where's the second cat, CG? You're letting us down here. Only one cat? Really?
I could try. He's so chill, though. He's right back there. Ziggy. Zigster. Ziggy does not give a hoot.
Does Ziggy also proxy Rax Reapers?
I think he would. He's kind of like he's on crack all the time, honestly. He bounces from wall to wall, which really goes hand in hand with building Reapers and playing Terran.
Nice.
I think Apollo would be a Protoss player.
Yeah.
He's chill.
Sit back, chill out, do nothing, accidentally win games. I see.
Yep. Accidentally win games? Is that what I just heard?
Yeah, sure.
No bias.
You gotta get some warty balance wine in there, but otherwise everyone who calls me out for balance wine all the time wouldn't be right, so.
That's true. You gotta give your trolls something, man.
Gotta make Twitch chat look good. Game 4 is ready to go, so unfortunately we have to cut away from cats and we have to go into game. We'll place cats with probes. As in the top right hand side, our blue Protoss up 2-1 in this best of 5 is Zest.
In the bottom left is the red Zerg. He is DRG. Afrika Freaks.
And this is a map where the probe comes across really quickly anyways, and still sends it before the pylon. DRG will just be straight up blocked here no matter what, so he's going to come down with the drone now. He already saw the probe coming in with the Overlord, so he already knows he's taking a third base in this scenario. Now goes the drone to take that third base.
I mean, it's Zen, I'm not even sure he would have gotten it down to the 14. It's pretty
Yeah,
tough.
Zen's such a short rush distance. It's like it's just unbelievable how fast a probe goes across from one natural to the other.
Well, Zen is the shortest map when you can actually use the middle, which sometimes is dangerous. Like everyone initially was thinking, okay, it's going to be tough for Protoss, which, I mean, it still kind of is, because if you have to wall like Zest does here, it's the best way to do what we've seen so far, like most Protoss do it the way that he's doing with the gateway on the left side. It does sometimes mean that you have to put your technology down here too, which is easily scouted and so on and so forth. But I will always give credit to like adept attacks on this map, sorry. As that can be kind of scary going through the middle of the map as fast as they do. I mean, Zest finally showed us Resident Glaives last game after the Archon drop starts. But what is he going to choose this one? Because that's what we're expecting. This guy doesn't want to go Stargate anymore. That's so 2018.
Yeah, Stargate. It's more like Star what? That's just
Good one, Wardy.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be a good one. I was just getting ready to follow up because I was actually Zest did actually play a Stargate the other day in PvZ, and I was shocked and I was horrified, and it looked terrible as well. That was the main thing I took away from it. I was like, I can understand why Zest does not build this structure, because he tried to play like a double Stargate Phoenix thing, and then he didn't commit too hard, and he is going to drop a Stargate here. I think it might have been on this map, so maybe this is just like his Zen build, going Stargate. I'm not sure if you'll go double Stargate Phoenix, but it is definitely, I think, when Zest plays Stargate, one of the more likely outcomes, because Zest is not the kind of guy to just play that typical macro game. He wants to do something to try and be on the map, aggressive, and really taking a lead, versus just sitting back and giving the Zerg time to set up.
It is maybe just the thing he likes to do on the map, for sure. Like, we would expect a best of 5 Twilight Council, because it's actually not that bad with the 2 choices that you have, plus all the choices that branch out from that. I mean, it couldn't just be an Archon drop. It could be an Archon charge lot attack, immediate follow-up. It could be exactly what he did last game, which is not just the Adepts and then stop building them, but just continue. It's a good opener right now, but Stargate was, for a long time, the go-to. It was actually so much of a go-to. It was like 95% of games.
Yeah.
I'm not even exaggerating. So it certainly has its merits, and it is definitely going to be a difference that maybe DRG had to remind himself could exist. Again, a lot of the time the Stargate is scouted just by the warp gate timing at the front, which the Overlord is usually very capable of seeing. So does he react differently? Would you expect so? You'd expect him not to make as many Lings. He doesn't have to catch as many Adepts. No Roaches really have to be made here either. In fact, the Roach Warren could have also been pushed off. But let's see if he's misinterpreting this. Well, okay, you can't really misinterpret the disco ball on top of your Overlord.
Yeah. He wanted to actually, Zest was actually saving for the double Oracle, but then got seen by the Overlord, so now just kind of reveals the Oracles, and so Spore Crawlers do start pretty much immediately here as the Stalker is going to be able to pick off this Overlord. I don't think DRG knew, because Zest actually didn't delay the Warp Gate for the Stargate first. He went Warp Gate, then Stargate. So I think DRG was just kind of expecting it to be the Twilight build. Obviously, now figured it out. Now has the Spore Crawlers down. A little bit of a shame still, because, against Stargate, you can usually drone a bit more. In this case, he still invested into a Roach Drone and things that he didn't really need to invest into this game. So Zest still has that advantage, even if the Oracles don't do much, but never mind, the Oracles get 5 drones as well. So Zest already getting off to a strong start here.
Yeah, very nice. That was a nice change-up, especially to use that Warp Gate kind of trick. But it's just unfortunate that DRG is the type of Zerg to have 2 Overlords and 1 to that right side. But yeah, even if it was scouted eventually, it still got the Roach Warren down, and maybe that would have been more drones, and still got 5 drones, even with the Spore Crawlers ready to go, which does happen a fair bit. It's more so about, having 2 queens like that. That's what stops them from doing damage at all. They're going to do a very nice job scouting. Quick 3rd Nexus put down, and a follow-up Robo very quickly. DRG really going to pivot away from the last 3 games, as Zest does as well. He's going to go for +1 melee, and possibly into, in the future, Baneling Ravager, but as soon as I was going to say that, he slaps down a Spire, so we're going to take a little pit stop at the Spire first. Something Zest didn't actually end up scouting in the first game, but immediately scouts in this game.
Yeah, getting that information is obviously amazing because now you can play around it a bit. Obviously, you can rescout as well in case the RG goes for that cancel. Zest, we're on his way toward charge though, so we'll not have the blink up or anything along those lines. I mean, that's kind of a bit more kind of regular when you go for this Oracle opening, so nothing too crazy about that, as this Oracle combo will just fly through the main base. Drops a Revelation, will fly through the third base once again, I think. So just again, double checking the Spire's still there, right? Still knowing that DRG is at least investing into the cost of the Spire.
Oh, clever.
Stasis Ward on the high ground. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen a Stasis Ward on that high ground before.
The way that DRG responds to it means that he has, though, right? Like, I would have not pulled to the hatchery. I would have been gone.
Yeah, I don't believe it. I'm like, Zest, you misplaced it, buddy. Like, what you do? And then be like, all my drones are captured. Oh, no! What? Sets it off with the roaches, and now he does get half of his mineral line caught in stasis, so that's a big eco loss for DRG. Successful stasis from Zest.
Every time I thought that second one was going to trigger, it didn't. And then all of a sudden it did. All right, then. That's a pretty damn good one. Storm charge +1 on the way. He's not going to hit before that Spire was done. But for DRG, not really worth canceling the Spire. Keeps it and then just builds other things. Doesn't use it at all. Back in the drones as well. Keeping tabs on what Zest is doing. So we're going to get up to that very large Baneling Ravager army with eventually +2. Now, yesterday, DRG was winning against his Protoss opponent, DongRaeGu. Never got that +2 or got it very, very late. It's almost like he forgot it or thought he was going to win. I hope he doesn't forget it here. I don't think he's going to win with his first push.
No, this is definitely a get +2 and play this out. He's going to go shields right away, actually. So that obviously helps you to buffer up the Archons, especially. So shields is a cool one. We actually don't. I feel like this is becoming more common, actually going +1 shields before +2 attack. And yeah, so that's still getting some usage at least out of the Forge. Not forgetting his upgrade entirely, even if it's not quite the one we would have originally predicted, as he will get that blink up as well. So really just securing himself. Obviously, blink is always a good thing to have on your person. Definitely helps to deal with potential meters that could still be swapped into at some point. Definitely still helps with certain parts of these armies, and it's not a bad upgrade to have later in the game as well if you need some stalkers against brute lords all of a sudden or something along those lines.
Yeah, well, I was DRG was the one who was a bit late to his +2. He, and by a bit, I mean really late. He did start it as planned. It seems like he was waiting for the second evolution chamber, he was waiting for his Baneling Nest. Every single upgrade comes down, triple evolution chamber upgrades actually. But I was a lot more worried about that +2. That's going to impact the Banelings on the probes, as we all know, but also in general make his army, this grand maxed out Baneling Ravager army, very potent. Now, Zest is happy he got away with his third Nexus. That means he will be over that very scary hump of 150 supply. That's usually when Protoss feel more confident about being able to split their army and take engagements. But he's still going to be up against the army that can just collapse in on him at any second. All right, the one that's waiting for him to make a mistake, be out in the open, and then kill him, and then instantly remax as well with the superior economy.
That's just getting that fourth base means that really actually going in for the long haul here. I mean, you actually didn't really see anything that went kind of past lair tech or like initial kind of this kind of stage of the army from Zest, but this really should at some stage end up being teched up. Nice catch on those Zealots. They will recall away. More Zealots already poised on the bottom side, but where are they going to run to? Best bet is maybe up the ramp into the natural expansion, but that's going to be over so much creep. It's not going to be a surprise attack, put it that way.
No, it won't. A lot of Overlord spreading creep is really nice from DRG. It's unlikely like a Stalker will be down there killing all those Overlords. A Phoenix could be made and might even be worth it, considering how much map vision DRG has, but yeah, not usually what you would have happen.
No. I like the Stalkers just getting rid of an Overlord here and an Overlord there. Anything you can do to just take away some of what DRG knows on this map is generally pretty good, as the Prism up the top side sees those few roaches, and well, Zest is going to come pushing down the bottom side. Now, there's not a base or anything here, so to really get a fight, yes, just going for everything. DRG just died? Oh my goodness. That was out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was not all of DRG's army, nor was it all of Zest. But Zest's army was supposed to be well protected. Like, that was the perfect army of Archons protecting the GUI center that was the High Templars, and Storm was protecting everything else, but not if you're not quick enough. Which Zest wasn't quick enough, or rather, he was too deep onto creep to be quick enough. And DRG instantly pounces, taking advantage of that, bust through the natural to head into the main base. All these banelings one-shotting the probes right now. Zest is going to clean this up, but he is down about 40 workers, almost exactly. Still down an upgrade since DRG went for the triple evolution chamber at one point, and is up against a Zerg player who just remaxed, easy peasy, no problems there, and also continues to afford additional tech and upgrades. This is one of those situations where it feels unbeatable, but Zest did have a bit of a bank of his own. So he did add in more High Templars. He did save a decent number of Immortals. He is remaxed himself and looking for some revenge.
With a continued run bys though from DRG, as he's going to see 2 Storms here make that 3rd one. This time, all of these Banes get taken down without really crashing in on anything. And that's so expensive, especially now because DRG, well, he has a good mineral bank, his gas bank, he's got something there, but it's not a lot. And he doesn't have a lot of Banelings already set to go. And that's very concerning in being able to fight this army here from Zest right now that's ready to take a fight. And you know what? This army of Zest is huge, 140 supply, because his worker count is so low. Extra Zealots showing up, extra Stalkers too. I just don't think DRG has a way to deal with this. He has no lava to spend the rest of his minerals either, and that means he can just keep pushing in as Zest, and he's going to get straight on top of this 4th base. All of these Ravagers going down. That was just too many Banelings giving up in those storms, especially off the back of the first round of Banelings actually being fairly expensive as well, even if they did end up doing some major damage.
The first attack with the Banelings, amazing, cool, good trade on all the gas that you just used there. The second one, that's what was supposed to happen in the first place. You're not supposed to send all 40 of your Banelings in a line towards the Protoss when they're prepared to deal with it, because that's what would happen. Had he been more reserved and just let a couple of storms land and save most of his Banelings, because they can definitely roll out a storm, we'd still be sizing up a big concave, a big surround. But yeah, it's funny that the bank was just enough for Zest to not only remax past the Baneling rolling, but also past losing all those probes. He was like, yeah, I don't need them. Let's just pick a bigger army. But with those two things combined, the Banelings dying like they did, plus the big remax, really doubling the army supply. Bit of an A-movie situation towards the end, and Zest does still continue to be best in the lower bracket, at the very least, and sends DRG packing.
I think it was just Zest's one opportunity, right? Because you can't really go into multiple fights off 50 workers there as Zest. But maybe DRG didn't need to dive in as quickly as he did. Maybe DRG has some more time to... I get it, right? You almost want to fight on the map because then you have more time for reinforcements to come up and morph Banes before Zest gets on your bases. Mm-hmm. But he just ran everything in from one direction. That's the part that didn't feel as great about this. Tough one, but Zest does indeed take it, as you say, and we'll move.
We stand as one. Are you gonna give me orders?